The ANC's National Executive Committee is preparing to hold a special meeting today to discuss President Cyril Ramaphosa's Phala Phala report. This follows the recommendations by an independent panel headed by the former Chief Justice, that's Sandile Ngcobo. According to the report, Ramaphosa has a case to answer in his handling of the Phala Phala farm matter. These developments come as the party is preparing to hold its 55th elective conference in a few weeks' time, and this will be here in Johannesburg, Nasrec to be exact. The ANC's national chairperson, Gwede Mantashe, is joining us in studio now to talk to us about various issues that concern the party, but including government. Mr. Mantashe, thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, Gwede.
Let's quickly get this out of the way. That meeting of the NEC, what time does it start this afternoon?
2 o'clock was started.
All right. Were you among the officials that the President would have spoken to on the back of the panel report, and give us a sense of what his thinking or where his thinking is right now?
We didn't have a formal meeting of officials to discuss it. But what we said when the report came out, let's have a quick National Executive Committee that has decision-making structure of the ANC between conferences to discuss the report. And the reason for that is we wanted to take the report out of the rumor mill in society and discuss it, express views, take formal decisions.
The understanding, or at least the reporting, is that the President is thinking of resigning. Is that indeed true?
No. My assumption is that, I think I know President Ramaphosa for quite some time now. One of the things he hates is to get into a noisy space. He would easily take that decision. But the decision to give the report space to be interrogated, to be tested, is the most correct one. Because if you assume anything without testing it, I'm one of the people who believe that if you are accused, the right to defend that space, take that report on review, I believe in that. If that happens, I'll be comfortable with that.
If you are suggesting what I think you are suggesting, let me put it as a direct question. Is the President intending to take this report on judicial review that's premised on the assumption that he is staying in office?
No. My own view is that the most premature decision would be for President Ramaphosa to just step down prematurely without a due process. When we took the resolution on step aside, which is the most abused and the most vulgarized resolution of the ANC, we said when a person is charged, let that person be step aside. Now that report of the panel, that's why it doesn't use the word should or have to. It uses the word may, because it knows that it cannot take a decision of finding the President guilty or not. Therefore, it only opens the way for the Parliament to start a process to interrogate that space. And I think that space must be created.
And so what I'm getting from you, again, I'm still stuck on this question around what the President is thinking of doing. And so what I'm getting from you is that there is no truth to reports that suggest that President Ramaphosa is on his way out.
People who make that suggestion, they are making an assumption knowing the sensitivity of the President to a noisy space. But the issue at play now is that we're going to the NEC, we'll table that report, and my own view as Gwede, I don't think he must just step out and leave now. He must allow the process to take its course and take a decision.
How likely is he to survive that NEC meeting? You've already heard a number of voices who are now ratcheting up that tone to say, President, step aside. Is he likely to survive the meeting?
I've listened to those voices. Actually, it's the same people who have been saying that for more than 2 years now. So it's not new. when it comes to this from the same people. When we go to the NSC, we'll be more or likely to hear voices that are fresh on the issue. Those people who stand up and say, go now, go now, they've been saying that for 2 years. And actually, they never accepted the outcome of the 54th National Conference. They always thought that he must go anytime. So it's another opportunity for them. We'll listen to them, but there will be discussion in the NSC.
Earlier in the week, Mr. Mantashe, you remarked that the ANC could have handled the Phala Phala saga a little bit better. Expand on that, please.
Now, the ANC, the reality is that the ANC sometimes assumes the responsibility of absorbing things that should go to judicial processes to itself. And in the process, it gets hurt. To get my point. You have the Palapala issue, it is in the parliamentary process, it is in the governor of the Reserve Bank, it is SARS, it's with everybody. But the ANC sometimes take a shortcut and want to absorb that to itself. And in the process, it gets hurt because it is not the competent body to do that investigation. The ANC must listen to investigation. Outcomes of those investigations must inform the decision of the ANC.
If that's your view, then it means you're going against the suggestion by former President Thabo Mbeki that the ANC should have been seized with discussions on this matter the moment that there were suggestions that it was either going to be investigated by law enforcement, including Parliament, because the emergency meetings that are taking place now perhaps are an indicator that the party itself was flat-footed.
No, the ANC must call a meeting now because there's a report out. Therefore, when there's a report out, there's a basis for discussion. And therefore say the way forward is as follows, following a report. But to just come out of the blue and say, the ANC must have a meeting, discuss this thing, is because we want to do something that we are not having the competence to do. We're not an investigating body. We're a political party. The only crisis that we must manage is that factions in the ANC get agitated, want to be on each other's throat. They attack each other all the time. That is what we must deal with, not the report. The Palapala report must be investigated properly, and the ANC must take a decision on the basis of outcome of reports.
You're not suggesting in any way, Mr. Mantashe, that President Mbeki could potentially be sitting on a particular faction when he made that remark that the ANC should have discussed this, because if that's what you're saying, then that's something completely
different. He's a retired president of the ANC. He can make any suggestion. One of the rights he has, that's why he goes to the NSC, he attends the NSC, is to tell the NSC right there, why is it important to discuss the issue? And the NSC members will be able to explain that there are reports that must come out that must inform a decision we must take.
One other element on this that I'm picking up from you is that you're saying if this matter had been discussed beforehand, as President Mbeki suggested, factions in the ANC would have used it for political brinkmanship. Is that the understanding?
That's what you see now when you interview them. He must go now, he must go now. Others say we must not go anywhere, and so forth. That shows the polarized situation within the party itself. Actually, the Palapala situation has been an issue for very difficult discussion in the ANC, more than anywhere else. But the right position for the ANC is to get these reports, on the basis of the reports, take a decision.
What's the party's position on suggestions that if the president does go prematurely, which is what you would be against, this will quicken the decline of the ANC?
It may be true. In the latest survey, the president was 68% and the party was 60%, meaning that he is an asset to the ANC. He is not a liability. If
he's an asset to the ANC, is the party not worried that if indeed he does stay, as you suggest, there are other processes that are ongoing. You have SARS, the Reserve Bank, the Hawks that are investigating. Is the President having sleepless nights about that, given what this report has already indicated, that there is a prima facie case?
The report refers this process to the parliamentary process. On the 6th, the Speaker has convened a meeting in Parliament to discuss the issue. That process will decide not on the guilt or not guilt. It will decide whether there should be an impeachment process that must go ahead in Parliament. And that is the process that we'll wait for.
All right, let me conclude the element around the President. The Integrity Committee, or Integrity Commission, in the last sitting of the NEC, it said, we're not ready. At least that's my understanding. If that Integrity Commission comes back and says, for the sake of the image of the party, because that is our duty as commissioners of the Integrity Commission, we want to preserve the image of the ANC. So, Mr. President, please step aside. Will the President respect that?
I don't want to pretend to be the President, because I'm not. But the reality of the matter is that if the Integrity Commission says so, it says for the sake, that's quite a loaded statement, because it means for the ANC to be preserved, everybody must just leave it. Then it will be reserved, because there will be nobody who misbehaves. It's not a part of angels, it's a part of members. And those members will commit one transgression or another. Our duty is to actually attend to those transgressions. So if the integrity says he must go, they must tell us, for this reason he must go. They can't be saying for the sake of the party. No, Professor Ntejan said so to me, that for the sake of the ANC, go. And I asked him, have you read the report? He said, no. And I said, please, the sake is a biblical approach to politics. It doesn't work in real life.
The transgressions,
yes,
that you seek to minimize, Mr. Mantashe, is in stark contrast with what you said earlier in the week, that you cannot begin to compare Phala Phala to digital vibes. This is now the candidate who's contesting the President, Xoli Mngambi. Why that distinction if these are mere transgressions? The issues inside the ANC, the corruption inside the ANC, yes, Mr. Mantashe, is big enough and has implications for the entire country. So you can't minimize it.
Well, let me clarify this thing of digital vibe and Phala Phala. I'm saying they are different. I stand by that. They're not the same. Phala Phala, there is a case of money stolen and so forth, and questions that are asked. Why so much money? Why didn't you report the case? And all those things. That's a different case. Digital vibe allegations are money was channeled. It's not the same case. There are two different cases, but they must be taken seriously. But this thing of integrating everything as if it's one is actual mischief.
So say it then. Say it out clearly so that South Africans understand that President Ramaphosa is not a looter, and he is being contested by those that you view as looters. Is that as clear-cut as it?
I don't view. I say the cases are different. One is not about looting. It's about procedural issues. Another one is about looting. That's all I'm saying. And I'm saying they must be dealt with. If there's transgression in not reporting, in keeping so much money, in having foreign currency in the house, that must be investigated as such. But don't put all of them together as one. They are not the same.
Now that we're on the subject of corruption, South Africans have a real opportunity to understand exactly where the ANC stands. Does it hate corruption? Does it hate gender-based violence? Does it hate other social ills that plague the country right now? There's a nomination list that is now out from the top 6 to the 80-member NEC, those 200 names were made public yesterday. Was that the best that the ANC could offer to South Africans?
That is the list that is nominated by branches of the ANC. Now, if we would sit in a room and say, let's select popes among them, the outcome would maybe have been different. Then that we're not given that right is because we're interested parties. We're also in the race. We can't be locked in a room and say, select the best. Branches of the ANC do that, and that is the right thing to do. Otherwise, we'll cease to be a democratic organization. We'll be autocratic, because few people will select who should be in the list.
Mr. Mantashe, let's pause there for a moment. When we return, we'll continue the conversation with the chairperson of the ANC and indeed the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy. And we are in conversation with the chairperson of the African National Congress. By the way, he is contesting that position, or he is standing ready.
Let me correct you. He is contested.
He is contested, and he wants to come back as chairperson of the ANC. Well, we're going to find out what it is that he thinks he still has to offer the party. In fact, let's pick up on that very issue. But I still want to go back to issues of corruption, Mr. Mantashe, because South Africans, frankly, if we're not going to put euphemisms and what have you, South Africans are sick and tired of the corruption in the ANC. And the reason South Africans would want you to be emphatic around issues of corruption is because someone out there is listening and saying, but what would you expect from Gwede Mantashe, who himself is implicated and has been found on the wrong side by the Zondo Commission of Inquiry? So you're a compromised person yourself.
No, Claude. I always argue that people must read the Zondo Commission report. Because if you don't read it, you just see a Gwede Mantashe name in the report and you say he's implicated. You are going to misstate the reality. The Zondo Commission says our terms of reference don't cover this issue. And they go further and say, we have tested everything. We have no prima facie case of corruption against Mantashe.
But law enforcement must...
No. But we think it must be referred to a different institution for further investigation. So if you say before that investigation is done and there is a prima facie case and you say, I'm fingered, the Zondo Commission has spent over R1 billion. It has not found any prima facie case against me. Let me start from there so that we put that aside. What we should acknowledge about the leadership of Cyril Ramaphosa as the president is that law enforcement agencies have been revived, has been strengthened, they're doing their work. People get arrested, people get prosecuted, and that is the only way you deal with corruption. You don't deal with corruption by calling a rally. You deal with corruption by taking individual cases, prosecute, convict.
Now that you bring up that point, you're almost speaking in a similar vein as the chairperson of the ANC in Northern Cape, Zamani Soul, who says, if Ramaphosa goes, if Ramaphosa does not return as president, if indeed he does stay but is removed at conference, the renewal effort, the revival of law enforcement, as you say, and the rest, all of that will be undone within 3 months. Is that what you are essentially confirming?
All I'm saying is that society must assess the progress that is being made under the leadership of Ramaphosa. But you know, the revival of law enforcement institutions and processes that are taking place, there's no no-go area for law enforcement institution now. They arrest anybody, they prosecute anybody. And I think that is how you deal with corruption. You don't have a president who sits there and deal with corruption. But the president strengthens the institutions to deal with corruption. That is what the president should do.
But it's the same government that has gone to court to challenge what the court said was a wrong medical parole, or was medical parole granted to former President Zuma incorrectly and unlawfully so. The Department of Correctional Services is challenging that in court. Is the ANC, and by extension its government, speaking in tongues?
No, it's not speaking in tongues. When you revive institutions, you don't want to take institutions to operate from Luthuli House. Institution must operate independent of the ANC. Take action. When there is a judgment, right to appeal is for everybody.
But I'm saying, Mr. Mantashe, President Ramaphosa's government that you seek to project as being against corruption, it is defending a decision that the Supreme Court says was wrong.
The reason that there's still a constitutional court is because judges can come to a wrong determination. When you have a right to appeal, it means that the courts themselves assume that another court may come to a different determination. And that right must be protected for everybody in society.
Let's talk about what it is that you think you still can offer. At 67 this year, you still want to return as chairperson of the ANC.
At 67, there are things that happens when you grow. Okay? One, when you grow, you learn. When you grow, you accumulate experience. When you grow, you build knowledge. When you supplement that with studying, that process is accelerated. That's why I always explain to people that fresh ideas are not a function of age. Fresh ideas are a function of curiosity to follow information, read information, and actually analyze the information. The more you improve your analytical capability, the better. And that's what I'm bringing. And I can tell you, Xoli, as the chairperson of the ANC, one of the things I'm always proud of is that everybody thought that when you came from Nasrec, there would be going to be chaos in the NSA. This is the end of the 5 years. One of the things that has happened in NSA members, there's been no chaos. Even when people disagree sharply, no chaos.
Let's wear your hat as Minister of Energy. So while you want to remain as chairperson of the ANC, you're happy to tell others that they are policemen in their jobs instead of actually being seen as running critical institutions such as Eskom. Why do you refer to Andre de Ruyter as a policeman who possibly doesn't have a clue about how that institution technically ought to function?
I've never called de Ruyter a policeman. That's what is called editorial freedom. To write him as a policeman. I said, Andre de Ruyter is a lawyer by training. And therefore he will have the capabilities to deal with other aspects of the work, particularly the criminal side and the law enforcement. That doesn't make him a policeman. And at this point I will repeat all the time, I say, I don't think the Ruyter as a person is a bad manager. But if you deploy an alpha to an institution that requires a fixer, you are actually destroying the institution and the manager himself. So you must select horses for courses. That's all I'm saying. And that's it. Okay.
Andre de Ruyter must go, therefore.
That's not what I'm saying. It's not my call. All I'm saying is that that institution has more complex engineering challenges. If somebody paid attention to that, there are about 22,000 megawatts that is idle but connected would be giving us energy and would not be having load shedding. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Mantashe, I want to quicken this because we're running out of time. Why is it that you don't just come out and say, I want Eskom returned into my portfolio so that I have the latitude to implement the things that I think would make Eskom to run optimally so that this country is not is not constantly plunged into load shedding. Have you made that request of the President?
Can I tell you, if ministers were selecting their portfolios and put them together, I would even take tourism into my portfolio. The reason that I'm not given the right to put together my portfolio is because my interest is protected by not putting me into a conflict situation. I can't put together my portfolio. That portfolio will be put together by the President. When it is given to me, I take it as such.
Do you want Eskom or not?
It's not a question of wanting. It's a portfolio. They are now in public enterprises. I must be settled with that. Okay. But the right to comment on it as it impacts on the energy policy is my right.
I put it to you that you are trying to ameliorate what you've already done, because you, in a way, you're expressing what that institution should be doing, even though it is not within your fold.
Can I tell you, when there's load shedding and I walk out there, people just in the street say, "It's no load shedding. What do we do that Mantashe?" And I have to explain along with that, listen, Eskom runs that aspect. It is not in my portfolio. Many people don't even believe that, but that's reality. Okay, so I don't need to ameliorate that Eskom is in TPE and I'm running energy policy. I don't need to ameliorate that. That's the reality that we're sitting with.
That institution, Eskom, my understanding is that they once experimented with what is called the underground coal gasification. This is an exercise to try and align the institution with climate imperatives. Are you aware of that project and where it ended?
I don't know what the Eskom did. I know that we do it. In Leandra, we have an experiment of carbon capture, storage and use. We're busy with that. It is funded by the World Bank. It's not a loan. It's a grant to do that. We're busy with that experiment.
And that experiment, is that what is going to help us as a country continue to use the coal that we have in abundance, but make use of it so that it is climate friendly? If
it is successful, that's what it will do.
How long must we give you for you to come to that conclusion?
I wish we can get Council for Geoscience here, because they are deeply involved in it. I don't want to pretend to be a technical person. Council for Geoscience is busy with that. It is in advanced stages. I don't want to put time frames.
All right. Let's then wear your other hat as Minister of the Mines.
Yes.
21 people died last month, and they were speculated to be illegal miners. Have you gotten an update as to what it is that led to their deaths?
You don't speculate about illegal miners. You know as a fact that they are illegal miners, because they will not be documented. They will have no right to be there. They will go there on their own, and they die underground. It's 21 illegal miners die. When 17 of them died in Glesa in Mpumalanga, we didn't speculate. We knew that there were 17 illegal miners, so that's not speculation.
Okay, so the understanding is that the 21 people who died last month were illegal miners?
Yes, they were illegal miners.
Do we know what killed them?
I won't know it, except that they're underground in a closed mine, in a derelict ownerless mine. There are many risks there. One of them may be methane. The other one may be flooding. The other one may be fire. It may be anything, because it's derelict and ownerless. That's why to engage in illegal mining is quite a risky crime.
It's a risky crime that your department is failing to get a handle on, and I'm saying this on the back of suggestions now by your department that you want to enforce the use it or lose it principle when it comes to mining rights. Is that indeed what you are pursuing?
No. Don't mix the two. Ownerless and derelict mine will be your West Rand in Krugersdorp, with an old mine that was mining before my death. Okay, before my birth. That mine was mining already. It's there. It has left unrehabilitated land, as a department to take responsibility for rehabilitating those derelict and ownerless mines. That's it. Now, the crime of stealing gold, that is what illegal mining is all about. It's a criminal offense. It must be treated as such. We must not, you know, some people suggest that when we do train people on artisanal mining, we must train illegal miners. I always emphasize, we are not training illegal miners. We are training citizens on artisanal mining so that they can engage in small-scale mining, not illegal mining. It's not the same.
But you are failing in this regard, and I want to pick up on that element when we return. Let's take a break. We wrap up this interview with Gwede Mantashe. You're just joining us, you find us at the tail end of the discussion with ANC National Chairperson Gwede Mantashe, also Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy. And we are discussing the mining situation, Mr. Mantashe, illegal mining in the country. And I'm putting it to you that your department has failed dismally in this regard to see to it that the mines that are no longer in use are properly dealt with in terms of rehabilitating that land. If it's holes that have been left open, the big machines must come and seal those holes. But that has not been done. Why is that?
No, you're making a wrong assumption, Connie, because you have not done inspection in local. Holes are being closed, okay? We get a budget of 140 million rand for rehabilitation every year. And with that budget, we close about 40 holdings. That program is underway right now. But with 6,900 known derelict and ownerless mines, it is going to take us time to close them. That includes the old asbestos mines. Now, that is one aspect. But the illegal mining is a crime. It's a war on the economy. And my submission consistent is that it should be attended to by law enforcement agencies. And that's what, more regularly now, SA Police Services has actually arrested a number of those people in a number of areas. And every time they do that, you see the difference. There are areas where you see that difference. There are areas where, when there is tight control of the police here, they migrate to a different area. That's why when we rehabilitated the East Rand, which used to be a hot spot, they migrated to the West Rand.
So, but in summation of what you are saying, yes, Minister Cyril is winning the war against illegal mining. Is that what you're saying?
He is waging the war against illegal mining. And that war must be intensified because illegal mining is a war on the economy.
All right. So he's not winning, he's waging the war. I want to bring your attention to another important project in the mining space. When you presided in 2019 over the historical establishment of Anot Opco, do you remember that? Mm-hmm. These were retrenched mine workers alongside the community, which at the time was basically at a loss.
Yes.
And those workers got themselves together and they established this Anot Opco. This was seen as an empowerment project that could be replicated throughout the country. Are you aware that that project right now is at risk of falling apart?
Let me give you a detailed explanation of that, a little bit detailed. That project is 50% owned by workers, 50% owned by West Coal. Okay. Once you establish it as a company, it's a company. It's not located in the department, it's a company. If West Coal go and apply for business rescue on that company, and those workers are fighting that case, I wish them luck, because you can't allow that project to collapse because of high ambitions of a company that was given the right and trust by Exaro to be partner of that project. That project is so dear, so important, it must just succeed.
So what you're describing to me is almost as though these workers are being muscled out of what was supposed to be an empowerment project for them. Is that not, in business language, is that not what is called the hostile takeover of a company?
It is a hostile takeover. I can tell you, Paul, in confidence that we have called them together several times before they reach the stage. But the issue is we must still continue to engage them. We must invite Exaro to be part of it because they backed the worker component. And actually make West Coast appreciate the fact that it's not their experiment. It's a very important experiment for society.
Final question to you, Mr. Mantashe. And the country is on tenterhooks. And in the main, the president's position is tenuous. What do you want to tell South Africans going into this meeting this afternoon, special meeting of the NEC, about what they're likely to hear post that meeting?
Tony, mere rumor that president is going to leave, the rand collapsed in an accelerated way. And to me, society and the market want stability. The ANC in that meeting has a responsibility to come up with a decision that will give country stability and reassurances.
Gwede Mantashe, let me thank you very much for your time.